Parliament complex breached and set ablaze. Supreme Court building torched. Unprecedented scenes continue to play out on the streets of Nepal for a second straight day. What started as a fallout of the Nepalese government's ban on more than 20 social media apps spiraled out of hands when the police resorted to use of force. The result? Complete mayhem. Fueled by anger over the death of 19+ youths, the protesters were up in arms today, forcing heads to roll one by one. The buck stopped with the Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, who resigned earlier today, rejected and denounced. Those once in power are now rushing to flee the country. Those who couldn't make it in time are being chased and beaten on the streets. The unrest in Nepal mirrors recent crises in neighboring nations, from the student-led uprising of 2024 in Bangladesh to widespread demonstrations triggered by the 2022 economic crisis in Sri Lanka. The similarities are airy. As Nepal faces its most volatile moment in decades, the parallels with its neighbors are stark. A brewing of deep-rooted frustration, rapid escalation into nationwide upheaval, and leaders cornered, forced to relinquish power or seek safety abroad. The region is witnessing a seismic shift, one defined by youth movements, institutional distrust, and the withering patience of traditional political structures. Or is there something more than meets the eye? That's the big question we'll take with our guest joining us in just a bit. First up, let's get you the big visuals that we've tracked from Kathmandu and beyond, from the streets of Nepal earlier today. The streets completely transformed into battlegrounds as protesters, predominantly from Generation Z, continued their demonstrations. The current situation in Nepal paints a very grim picture of a nation on edge. The streets are filled with smoke of charred buildings, air thick with tear gas and more. And the voices of a populace leading the change. There is no stopping the kind of anger that is being witnessed on the streets of Kathmandu and beyond against everyone. No one has been spared, whether part of the current government or not. In fact, these are visuals of Nepal's Finance Minister Bishnu Prasad Paudel, seen running on the streets with people chasing him and actually landing kicks on him as he tries to run away from the crowd to save his life. Almost the entire government in Nepal now, including the exiting Prime Minister, seem to be in hiding. Speculations are rife if they will have to even flee the country. Former Prime Ministers, many sitting ministers have come under attack from mobs. Earlier, we also saw pictures of helicopters taking some of those ministers and those part of the government away to safety. The army, of course, has been entrusted with taking these leaders to places of safety. As many as 4 elected governments have been toppled mid-term around the Indian neighborhood in what appears to be now an inescapable pattern. So let's break this down for you. First, of course, was Pakistan. It witnessed a similar situation back in 2022, where former Prime Minister Imran Khan's ouster was forced through a no-confidence motion, the first time in Pakistan's history, in the backdrop of a prolonged military tiff and allegations of conspiracy, remember. He was also on a warpath with America at that time. The country descended into chaos with massive street protests and more. Sri Lanka then witnessed a similar situation, unprecedented scenes in July 2022 in the wake of nationwide demonstrations over spiraling economic crisis that led to the downfall of the Rajapaksa clan. 2 years later, and just last year, remember, it was the Hasina government that was toppled following what was labelled as a student protest over job quota in government ranks. But many feel now what followed next gave away the game. Is something similar at play? Now, of course, it is Nepal, again another country bordering India. Prime Minister Oli has been forced to step down amidst mounting concerns of corruption, triggered by a ban on social media sites as well. The visuals speak for themselves. In fact, from Sri Lanka to Bangladesh and Nepal, seats of power were attacked in very similar fashion. Parliament complexes in all of these 3 countries were breached by angry protesters at the peak or the crescendo of the protests. The manner of the protests is very similar, mind you, as if one is giving cue to the next, which is why it is forcing us to think whether something larger is at play or is one movement fueling or becoming a template for the next. Not only were parliaments attacked, heads of country faced direct heat too. Their houses were vandalized or ransacked by the protesters in all three of these countries. We saw it happen with Rajapaksa's presidential home in Sri Lanka. Then, of course, those ugly visuals coming in from Hasina's residence in Dhaka just last year. While the whereabouts of KP Sharma Oli currently remain unclear, his private house also was attacked earlier today by protesters. It was torched in the middle of the day. It all leads us to question one thing. With Oli out and the army effectively in, at least for the interim, what is truly behind these protests? Is there something more than meets the eye? Is there a pattern that cannot be refuted? And what is the message to the larger subcontinent here, including India? How should we view what's happening in Nepal today and what happens next? That's coming up with our guests. Let's go across to our guest joining us. KV Rajan is former Indian ambassador to Nepal. Ajay Bhadra Khanal is research advisor of Center for Social Innovation and Foreign Policy, a think tank based in Nepal. And Dr. Pramod Jaiswal is research director at Nepal Institute International Cooperation Engagement, another body that functions very closely with the polity and the social issues in Nepal. I also want to just quickly go across to some of the updates that are coming in. But okay, before that, let's also talk about what we're witnessing today. KV Rajan, I begin with you. How nervous or worried should India be with what's transpiring in Nepal over the last 48 hours or so?
No, India should be and is very, very concerned about what is happening for more reasons than one. Nepal is a specially close country as far as India is concerned. We have enjoyed multifaceted links for a very, very long time. And what happens in one country cannot be insulated from what happens in the other. But also we must remember that there is a long 1700-kilometer open border between Nepal and India. And when there is political instability and violence and discontent, popular discontent of this kind, then there are third countries which are interested in using Nepalese territory for mischief against India. It has happened in the past and it might happen again unless we are very, very careful. So India is very worried, and let us not forget that what is happening in Nepal is a result of a very palpable sense of discontent and frustration which has been rising for many years. In fact, Nepal has been simmering for quite some time, and everyone who has been watching Nepal was wondering when it would boil over and how. You see, what has happened is that Nepal entered into transition. Everyone thought that when the Maoists were mainstreamed and the insurgency ended a few years ago, that there would be a new Nepal that was born. And when the Maoists embraced multi-party democracy, everyone, including India, thought that there would be an era of peace and prosperity in Nepal. Now, what has happened, unfortunately, is that those expectations have been belied, and there has been corruption on a massive scale, misgovernance on a very massive scale.
Okay.
And young people, particularly, felt that there was no future for them in Nepal.
Yeah.
So it is a very explosive mix, and India has to really be very, very watchful and very, very careful
It's
about
an explosive mix, and that's an interesting term that you used, because in that explosive mix, sometimes the actual intended issues can get sidestepped, and we can lose the way into as to how to get to actual fruitful or constructive changes that some of the protesters may be demanding. Is that the situation where Nepal has reached is also a big question. But let me highlight the fact that KP Sharma Oli, of course, resigned and handed over the interim governance, or at least the control, to the army, because that is clearly what is needed right now. This is a statement that has been released by the Ministry of Defense in Nepal. And it says that this movement has caused irreversible harm and deep sorrow to the people, and it is with a heavy heart that we extend our condolences to the bereaved families. We express heartfelt sympathy and solidarity. At the same time, we wish for the speedy recovery of the injured. The Nepali army has always been committed to the protection and security of Nepal and the Nepali people. The Nepali army has been playing a crucial role in safeguarding the defense and victory of Nepal and its people during this ongoing situation. So they are, of course, urging for some sort of peace. I'm not sure if that is really going to happen as easily as that. But Ajay Bhadra Khanal, I want to come to you. What do you make of the Nepalese army now, making this appeal, issuing this appeal, also a condolence message of sorts, something many people felt was missing in the messaging of the Oli government?
Yeah, I think so, because, as of now, there is no elected representative representing the state. They have all gone underground, or either have resigned or gone underground.
Yes.
So at present, it's only the Nepali army and the president who represent the state. And of course, the bureaucracy, but it's the Nepali army which has the say in the future course of events. And I think the Nepali army has a characteristic. It has experience, it has knowledge, and I think it will do the right thing in having consultations with demonstrators, with the civil society, and with politicians, and coming up with the right kind of political outlet. And I'm confident that they will be able to do that. Regarding today's events, it is unexplainable. Of course, as Ambassador Rajan said, we know why there was so much pent-up anger, and we know how, this whole thing started. But today's events is unexplainable, and the organizers, the Genji, have said that they were not responsible for vandalism. They had already withdrawn from the protest, and we have some sort of a different kind of elements who are trying to take advantage from this anarchic situation. And I think everybody is now ready for peace. And
Okay.
we are hoping, all Nepali people are now hoping that there would be a peaceful outlet. And I think Nepali army is at the center, and I think they will be very responsible.
Dr. Pramod Jaiswal, this is exactly what happens more often than not when you have such sort of a large mass protest. It's very easy in most of these situations for antisocial elements to creep in, if that is what has happened in Nepal, and to steer the entire protest into a direction that it becomes completely uncontrollable. Where do you think that responsibility lies? Was it the fact that the government did not take the right steps when they could have taken, or do you think the protesters also went astray to some extent?
I think, first of all, the state should have responded very responsibly, because yesterday, when there was protest, the use of excessive force was not desirable, because nowhere in the history of Nepal we have seen that 20 people, almost 20 people, has died in a single day. We have overthrew monarchy. We have got different kind of movement in this country. We have got all kind of violent protests that have lasted for months. But nowhere we heard that such a huge number of casualties has been reported, especially in one location.
Okay.
So that is where the state should have avoided such provocations. Second is that the attack was on a very young children who were armless, school kids, or you can say university students, all younger generation. So I think it was not necessary to have those kind of force desired. Obviously, there is some element might have benefited from that and might have provoked that, but I think it was under control. The order given by chief district officers, the role of Nepal Army, Nepal Police, not Nepal Army, but Armed Police Force and Nepal Police are questionable. The Home Minister was not very capable to handle that well. I think that is the first step that we have avoided. Second, I think what is also important is that even the government failed to come address the people there. They were not able to address the demands. Even the social media was not released. The ban was not removed till the cabinet meeting. The Deoba had to intervene and pressurize the prime minister to request, and the resignation of prime minister came much later today. I mean, if they had responded last night, they had whole night, 12 hours to decide. Maybe by morning they would have taken things under control, because yesterday they were killing and there was anger, but the anger from the people's side was very harsh today, where the houses of all the top 50, or you can say around 20, 30 top ministers, senior politicians were burned down, parliament is on fire,
Right.
President House, Supreme Court, all is on fire. And I think the government could have stopped this last night if they had responded promptly in the right direction.
The army is now requesting the public to be disciplined and united. But of course, what happens very often when these protests are, just going on as they are in Nepal or some of the countries we've seen in the past, is there's no face to hold accountable for what is happening for these protests. And that also lends to the fact that there is anarchy or lawlessness that prevails. There is no one to control the protest, at least visibly, if it goes out of hand. We're also getting some more updates. President Ramchandra Paudel, who had resigned earlier this evening as well, has urged all parties now to work together to find a peaceful solution amidst this ongoing national crisis. In a statement released today, he says, and I quote, "With the resignation of Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli now accepted, I trust that all sides will cooperate to resolve the issues in the interest of the country, its people and democracy." He's also said that demands of citizens can be addressed through democratic processes and appeal to the Gen Z protesters and all stakeholders to engage in dialogue and negotiations. But is that what is possible? Is that what the Gen Z protesters, quote unquote, are looking at? We, in fact, spoke to one of the protesters, Shiv Yadav. I want to go across to this conversation with him because he's really one of the representatives of the Gen Z protesters as we speak. What is in their mind? Let's try and figure this out. Shiv Yadav is joining us. He's one of the protesters. My first question to you, Shiv, are you satisfied with the Prime Minister's resignation? आप संतुष्ट हैं कि Prime Minister ने finally अब इस्तीफा दे दिया है?
नहीं, प्राइम मिनिस्टर का रेजिग्नेशन भी होना चाहिए था। और हम लोग क्या चाह रहे हैं, यहाँ पर पब्लिक के अनुसार से सरकार गठन होना चाहिए। जो अंतरिम सरकार होगा वो सरकार पब्लिक बनाएंगे, आंदोलनकारी युवा सब बनाएंगे। और अंतरिम सरकार के बाद हम लोग चाह रहे हैं कि हम अपने नेतृत्व में निर्वाचन की मिति तय करके निर्वाचन में जाना चाह रहे हैं हम लोग।
तो आप चाह रहे हैं ये जो जेन जी प्रोटेस्टर्स हैं, आप जैसे जो लोग हैं, वो जो इंटरिम गवर्नमेंट बने, आप उसका हिस्सा बनना चाहते हैं?
हाँ, उसमें शामिल करके हमको अंतरिम गवर्नमेंट बना के हम लोग निर्वाचन में जाना चाहते हैं।
तो आप अगला इलेक्शन लड़ेंगे, अगले इलेक्शन की तैयारी करेंगे?
हाँ, इलेक्शन में तो हमारा युवा सब इलेक्शन लड़ेंगे। अब हम संविधान में भी कुछ परिवर्तन करना चाहते हैं और निर्वाचन जो एन है उसमें भी परिवर्तन करना चाहते हैं। और उस एन सब में परिवर्तन करके और इसके बाद इलेक्शन के डेट फाइनल करके हम सब युवा सब इलेक्शन में जाएंगे।
So you are talking about making changes to the Constitution and the Election Commission. किस तरह के changes चाहते हैं आप?
कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में भी हम चेंज चाहते हैं और जो इलेक्शन कमीशन है उसमें भी हम चेंज चाहते हैं। हम लोग क्या चाहते हैं कि जो सांसद, जो मंत्री, जो अभी तक को प्रधानमंत्री जो है, जो 2 पटक 3 पटक 2 पटक से बेसी पटक जो मंत्री बन चुका है, प्रधानमंत्री बन चुका है, उसको हम इस बार के इलेक्शन में युवा बैंड करेंगे, वैसा हम एन लाना चाहते हैं। और युवा सबको, जो नया युवा है उसको निर्वाचन में लाना चाहते हैं और चुनाव में हम जोड़ना चाहते हैं।
देयर आर सजेशंस एंड कुछ गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से भी बयान आए थे कि कुछ आउटसाइड फोर्सेस यहाँ पे काम कर रहे हैं, बाहरी तत्व कुछ हैं जिनकी वजह से ये सारा प्रोटेस्ट हो रहा है नेपाल में।
नहीं नहीं, इसमें बाहर तत्वों का कोई हाथ नहीं है। ये जो नेपाल के युवा सब में जो एक फ्रस्ट्रेशन था, जो ये नेता लोग थे, वो बहुत लंबे समय से जो युवा सब में फ्रस्ट्रेशन, यहाँ रोजगार नहीं है, यहाँ पर कुछ ठीक व्यवस्था नहीं है, यहाँ पर कोई विकास नहीं है, उसका फ्रस्ट्रेशन से वजह से ये सब क्षति हो रहा है। अगर कल जो प्रोटेक्शन हुआ और युवा को जो गोली हाना गया सरकार को तरफ से, उसके लेकर ये आक्रोश आज ये दिख रहा है।
बट सवाल तो उठ रहे हैं कि इस प्रोटेस्ट में जो इतना वायलेंस हुआ है, क्या वो सही है? क्या इतना वायलेंस के साथ प्रोटेस्ट होना चाहिए था? अभी हमने देखा है, इमेजेस आई हैं कि लीडर्स और उनके फैमिली मेंबर्स पे भी अटैक हुए हैं।
नहीं नहीं, हम लोग वायलेंस के समर्थक नहीं है, लेकिन सरकार क्या किया, हमारे युवा सबको, जो जेनजी युवा सब है, उसको छाती और माथा में गोली ताक ताक के मारा है और हमारे 600 लोग अभी हॉस्पिटल में भरना है, युवा सब। तो ये तो नहीं, अब गवर्नमेंट को तो ये नहीं करना चाहिए था ना, उसके लेकर ये प्रोटेस्ट को इस अवस्था सृजना हुआ है।
Okay, Shiv Yadav, just stay with me. I also want to bring in our other guests right now. Ajay Bhadra Khanal, how do you look at this demand that the protesters are making, that whatever interim government is formed now should have representatives of the Gen Z? How feasible do you think that is?
I think this is something that is feasible and should be done as well, because I think the protests have grown out of hand. You know, it's up to the um, protesters and the demonstrators to have a say in the future course of events. And if we don't properly address that, I think this demonstration will continue. So it's a way of maintaining peace. And I think that given the complete vacuum and absence and the loss of legitimacy of the old parties and the parliament, I think this is a way out. I think we should have a broad representative government. And this are. Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, go ahead. All right, Dr. Pramod Jaiswal, I want to bring you in on this as well. They want to be part of the new interim government. They want changes in the constitution. They're saying we want to change the election commission as well. How easy or difficult will it be to now identify the representatives of this broad Gen Z protest and make sure that voices can be heard?
It's a very challenging situation because Gen Z is one mass and there is no face at the moment. So who will be the face will be the first, I think, confrontation, competition, you can say, within the crowd. That is one. Second is that what will be the major agendas, because Gen Z is an age group, they don't have clear agenda. So I think what will be the changes that they want in constitution, that will be also debatable. That will be major agendas at the moment. Third will be like when they're asking of having an interim government. So who will lead that interim government is another challenge. Probably people are speculating that it can be the mayor of Kathmandu, Balen, but whether they will accept him or not is another question. Again, the interim government will have other members. So who will be there? There are lots of questions that are being asked, and it's within them as well, which is people are not aware. They themselves are not clear, because now they've been invited for negotiations. How they will negotiate, what they will negotiate, do they have the verdict to negotiate on those terms? There are lots of challenges that we see in coming days.
Yes. Are the protesters now ready for stage 2, for what follows if they are to negotiate their terms? Before I go across to Shiv once again to understand who their representatives could be, KV Rajan, I want to bring you in on this as well. What the protesters seem to be suggesting is a complete indictment of the political system in Nepal. They're saying we are fed up of everyone. We are fed up not just of this government, but everything that came before it. And we don't want this to continue. It's like they've completely rejected every political structure that stands in Nepal today. This is a very precarious situation.
Yeah, well, that is very understandable, I think, because ever since democracy came back in its present form, parties have changed, prime ministers have been changing by rotation, etc. But corruption, nepotism, all the other ills that the protesters have been talking about, maladministration, etc., they have been practiced by all the leaders, all the political parties, and therefore there is anger against all of them across the political spectrum. You see, Nepal entered into what seemed to be an unending transition some years ago, and in the process it has lost, I think, more than it has gained. It had a certain identity, it has lost that identity. It had a certain sense of direction, it has lost that sense of direction. So it is really a country which doesn't seem to have any kind of raison d'etre, as it were, at the moment.
Okay.
And instead of focusing on inclusive development, prosperity, progress, there has been a tendency to indulge in reckless nationalism, particularly on the part of the left-wing parties, and play the China card despite crossing certain red lines. So the relationship with India has also suffered, and in the process Nepal has suffered, its long-term interests have suffered. It's very interesting that Gen Z is associated with the generation that was born after 1995.
Right.
Because that was the year I entered Nepal as ambassador. And, you know, India practiced a different policy then. It was called the twin pillar policy of supporting the monarchy as well as all the political parties without any favoritism, and focusing only on development. So the result was, even when we negotiated an important agreement with the government of the day,
Okay.
we also negotiated with the opposition of the day. So all the parties used to get the credit for any important agreement with India. And so there was forward movement and there was peace. And those were happy years. Now what has happened since then is very different. And there is an agenda which has been followed, which doesn't seem to take into account either Nepal's own national interests or the urgent needs of the younger generation for jobs, etc.
Yes.
And that is
and
why
you know, this whole
explosion
social
has
media
taken
ban
place.
also, many felt that this actually took away income making avenues for the Gen Z as well. Many of them earned through social media, and that is why there was a lot of triggering, and because of that social media apps ban, we
Well,
have this
you
letter
know,
that has now been issued by Gen Z protest. It has just been issued by Generation Z protesters. One of them is with us. I will take this to him. But this clarification on peaceful movement and public property vandalism, they say that they have retrieved from the protest sites, that they are not associated with any individuals or groups involved in vandalism, and that their movement does not welcome opportunists or political party members attempting to hijack it. This movement belongs solely to the youth of Nepal, independent, determined and committed to peaceful change. Well, as far as peaceful change is concerned, that ship has already sailed. That hasn't quite happened. And the problem with such protests is that you don't really know who you can hold accountable for the kind of vandalism that took place. Yes, government takes accountability for the army firing, etc. But what about the other side? Let me take that to Shiv Yadav, who continues to be with me. Shiv, first of all, पहली बात तो ये है कि आप कह रहे हैं कि आपको अब देखना है कि इंटरिम गवर्नमेंट में जेन ज़ी प्रोटेस्टर्स को लिया जाए, लेकिन उसके लिए पहले कुछ पीस तो बनानी पड़ेगी ना ग्राउंड पे, कुछ पीसफुल एटमॉस्फेयर बनाना पड़ेगा, वो कौन करेगा?
नहीं, हम चाहते हैं, अभी तक प्रधानमंत्री रिजाइन कर दिया है लेकिन संसद विघटन नहीं किया है। हम लोग चाहते हैं कि संसद विघटन करके अंतरिम गवर्नमेंट का युवा सबका शामिल करके गवर्नमेंट में जाना चाहिए।
एक तरह से क्या बांग्लादेश से इंस्पायर्ड है, जहां पे एक इलेक्टेड गवर्नमेंट को हटा के अनइलेक्टेड केयरटेकर्स बन गए थे गवर्नमेंट के?
नहीं, हम लोग बांग्लादेश से भी हम लोग क्या चाह रहे हैं कि युवा सबके नेतृत्व में सरकार बने। युवा सबके नेतृत्व में जो ये लोग जो नॉनसेंस ऐन कानून बनाकर युवा सबको जो दुख दिया है, यहाँ पर स्वतंत्रता का हक जो हनन किया है, उसको हम सबसे पहले लोकतांत्रिक पद्धति में कायम करेंगे और उसके बाद हम इलेक्शन में जाएंगे।
तो ये जो प्रोटेस्ट था, आप कानूनों की बात कर रहे हैं, ये प्रोटेस्ट इसलिए था कि ये जो सोशल मीडिया एप्स में बैन हुआ है, इसकी वजह से ये प्रोटेस्ट इतना भड़क गया?
नहीं नहीं, ये सोशल मीडिया तो एक वो था, लेकिन ये फ्रस्ट्रेशन युवा सब में जो है ये बहुत लंबा समय से चल रहा था। ये प्रोटेक्शन ये कुछ दिन का नहीं, ये 10 साल से युवा सब रोड पर कुछ न कुछ फ्रस्ट्रेशन निकाल रहे हैं और ये उग्र रूप ये बहुत बहुत दिन से ये चल रहा है ये प्रोटेक्शन।
बट आगे बढ़ने के लिए अब आपको कुछ अपील तो करनी पड़ेगी ना पीस की। ये जो लेटर अब इशू हुआ है वो एक अपनी तरफ है, लेकिन कोई पीस की अपील आप लोग करेंगे जेन-ज़ी प्रोटेस्टर्स?
शांति के लिए सबसे पहले तो संसद विघटन करना चाहिए। ये सरकार को जो अभी रिजाइन किया है, अब ये संसद विघटन जब तक नहीं होगा तब तक ये आंदोलन रुकने वाला नहीं लग रहा है और अंतरिम गवर्नमेंट का जब तक तैयारी नहीं करेगा तब तक ये नेपाल में ये आंदोलन रुकने का संभावना नहीं है।
तो आपको इंटरिम गवर्नमेंट में कौन लीड करेगा? आपने अपने लीडर्स चुने हैं अभी तक?
जेनजी नेतृत्व का हमारा भाई सब है और इसका जेनजी का हम लोग इसका व्यवस्थापन सब मैनेजमेंट हम लोग कर रहे हैं। जेनजी का हमारा भाई तो आयोजक हो गया और हम लोग सबका इसका व्यवस्थापन करके हम लोग सरकार के तरफ से और आंदोलनकारी के तरफ से शांतिपूर्ण वार्ता के माध्यम से हम लोग इसको शांत करना चाहते हैं।
अच्छा, एक आखिरी सवाल मेरा आपसे, ये बालन शाह का नाम बहुत लिया जा रहा है, वो एक पॉपुलर फिगर हैं, काठमांडू के मेयर हैं, क्या वो आपके लीडर बन सकते हैं? आर यू इन टच विद हिम? क्या आपकी कोई बातचीत है उनसे?
बालन शाह से भी बातचीत युवा सब करना चाहते हैं और डिमांड कर रहा है बालन शाह, कुलमानगी सिंह और भी यहाँ पर जो चर्चित लोग हैं विगत में अच्छा काम किया है उसका डिमांड आ रहा है। लेकिन आंदोलनकारी का जेनजी पुस्ता का जो डिमांड में आएगा उसके नेतृत्व में सरकार बनेगा।
Okay, I leave it at that. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. Clearly, the protesters, they're saying they're not going to relent till they find representation in whatever is the interim government, and only then will they cease of this. Will they cease this protest? But in the meantime, there are concerns for everyone, including in India, of what is the future of Nepal, and is this becoming a template of removing elected governments over any kind of anger that may be real or otherwise? That's the big worry that's coming in for the Indian subcontinent.